heard this morning Monica closing this loop and talking about the circular economy from eco-design to recycling. So we are here in the middle of the loop, trying to get those products or byproducts and waste into the loop and get to new uses out of them. So this is basically what I'm just going to put that on the table and just give you some inspiration and some practical case. Hopefully that will inspire you for your discussion later. So why are we interested in these kind of new uses of byproducts and waste? Because first, it's good for the planet. This creates less waste for the environment, we're using less natural resources, and we're minimizing the ecological footprints. That's just the primary rationale to engage in that kind of processing. So use of byproducts meaning use less waste, and meaning also less primary resources used for doing this kind of processing or any kind of product development. I exhausted the microphone already with my French. So first, it's good for the planet. Second, it's good for the value and the business as well. Because why are we interested in that? Because it reduces the costs. Meaning that if you give a value to the byproducts and to the waste, meaning that you get more, you get less cost and better value for what you're doing. Reducing costs can be done through optimizing the resources used, avoiding disposal costs. When you throw something away, it's never for free. It's always you have to pay for it. So this is very important, and it can have a big impact on the business and the business planning and the business balance. Using less virgin resources, obviously, but byproducts can also create added value. And that's what I want to stress here, because added value creation is one, I see it's an overall objective on most of the flags, this value added creation on how to retain the value and retain the richness on the territory. That's one big thing. And I think these byproducts and waste valuation and processing and use is a very good way in order to create this value added on the territory and maintain it there. So it can be done through new processes, new uses, and obviously creating higher prices for different markets. And also something we're going to talk about is collaboration with neighbors and the sharing of facilities, which is somehow quite different to the new uses of I'm going too fast?
No, it's
okay.
Fine.
This kind of thing also, it's a bit in parallel, but still it's very important in terms of circular economy, because that also includes car sharing, for instance, somehow. So this is the fisheries supply chain. It goes from the production to the consumer, from the fish in the oceans to the plate, and it's basically going through the production, capture, collection, value-added creation through processing, distribution and logistics, and sale and consumption. Wait, this is, there is no the, there you go. There you go. So this is just what you can see at the bottom is how we could think about this kind of new uses of byproducts and waste through the whole chain, because obviously when you think about these kind of new uses, it's you think straight away about like processing or consuming, like using the shells, things like that. But actually, there are many different uses that you could do out throughout the value chain. And these are just a few examples. So if it's not easy to understand, just let me know. But
Thomas, question.
One question.
Yes.
Okay. You have discard fish, undervalued fish use in aquaponics.
Yes.
So
do you want
okay, excuse me. Sorry. Okay, sorry for it. There was discarded fish, maybe used in aquaponics, or what do you use it for feeding the fish in the aquaponics?
Uh,
Or what's the
No,
change?
those are different bullet points. This is different uses. It's just a variety of different uses. So discarded fish could be used in something, like for instance, fish for fish meal, and but aquaponics is another kind. It's another kind of uses. So it's not necessarily the discarded fish that could be used for aquaponics.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It's just like a variety, random variety of what could be used. So, and basically each case is so different because it's so specific to your resource, your deposit, what your techniques, etc. So I just want this a brief overview of what could, but maybe there are other tens of other applications that could be done. So. But for this kind of fish, that, like the species that are not used or barely used or with low price, there are many opportunities to do different things. For the transport as well, this wastewater or unsold fish is also a great source of waste. This unsold or the fish that doesn't, it's not stored well and not well conserved or maintained. This is avoidable, and this can create some additional value. About the processing, this organic waste, so bones, skins, the guts, as well as mineral like the shells, could also there are plenty of different examples of uses of this. And another thing is this energy surplus. I'm just going to go back to this later. About transport, shared transport, and how to use these transport boxes, like uses of this or packaging. There is an example of this, like in Spain, the polystyrene boxes that are used for and processed and used for other plastic products. For instance, it's not recycling; it's just using it in a different way. And about consumption, this organic waste, the shells, and waste from restaurants could also be processed and valued in a sense. So these are just a few examples. This very simple figure is an actual a practical case in Denmark. It's in Kalundborg, and it's one of the greatest examples of industrial symbiosis. So this is about synergies and a win-win scenario, I would say, between businesses. So this is basically an harbor that is all connected together, and those industries. So you have maybe you can read somehow, but this is basically a scheme with the flows, the name of the industries, and what they share together. But it's very impressive to see that they're all sharing some inputs and flows all together. So it can be energy, it can be fuel, it can be water, it can be anything that are shared and connected throughout the neighbors. So this is a great, well, this is the top level example of industrial symbiosis. But in each territory, there are opportunities to create some collaboration among the industry, and there are some good examples of industry sharing heat, for instance, like in Spain, where in the leisure sector, a sport complex that is heated is providing heat to heat the swimming pool for the kids, for instance, which is somewhere else. So this kind of heat sharing is a good example. There are also some like biogas production that is used for producing vegetable in greenhouses. And here there used to be an example of sunflower oil which was used to power fishing boats here in the Basque Country. Unfortunately, this was at the time of the fuel going down, so it made the whole business model unprofitable. That's why this project was stopped. But it was working well because the farmers from the Basque Country would produce like sunflower oil that was used for the fishing vessels. So that's a great example of this kind of symbiosis, win-win scenarios. And this can also apply, to my opinion, to job sharing, like fisheries and fish farming in agriculture, for instance, I think there could be some good synergies to find like people working in oyster farms could during the winter season could be also employed in greenhouse gases or vegetable production during the summer season. That could create like a full-time job. This is some kind of good collaboration. This is a bit aside of the circular economy, but that's the way we think, which is important. So this is about the practical cases and these examples, but I just want to stress two things about how to develop this kind of model and businesses. The first one is about the feasibility. So for each of the projects, you should consider these feasibility questions. And those are listed here. And it's not exhaustive, it's not complete, but it gives you a good grasp about what you should think about when developing this kind of project. So first of all, is about volumes and quantities. Is the deposits or the resource or the waste volume I'm talking about enough to develop this kind of business I'm thinking about? So is there a chance to have this profitable or not? Are there local possibilities and infrastructure, facilities, project holders, people to process these things and basically all the project? Do we have enough knowledge? Do we have enough technical expertise in order to go through this process? Or are there any research needs? Do we have any facilitators to engage in the project? Meaning like either any innovation agency, incubator, or helpers, any helpers on the way that could help with the project? So what is the value created? Is there a buyer? And can I collaborate with other regions? So that's for the feasibility, which is mostly technical. When it comes to business development and model, sometimes most of the people stop at the idea. So they say, this is a great idea, we're gonna go and do it. But in fact, it's just the start. It's just the start of the business developments where the idea, even the bad ideas can do great businesses. So I think first of all, the idea is good, like how can I use this thing with what can I do with this, and is it profitable, etc. But the second question, most important one, is there a market for the product and the service we're talking about? So is there any buyer, and who are the customers? Is there any competition? How much can the business hope to sell and at what price? This is the kind of thing that should lead the discussion and the thinking about this project. And the last but not least is about the business model and the business planning. So can the business cover its cost and generate income? That's a good question. So this is the kind of question that should also lead the discussion, and basically this idea, from idea to practical uses, then you can reiterate your process and think about it in order to reduce the cost and increase the income all the time. So this is just general, but I'm just going to end with a few projects that you could find again on the Farnet website. This is about using fish waste for fish meal. There is a very good example of that in Spain. Also, in terms of 3D printing in Sardinia, the mussel shells is used for jewelry, tiles, and watch cases. You could find some details on this on the website as well. The pilado crab for biomedicine in Portugal. I think we have another example of that in the Basque Country, where the flag is looking at high-valued molecules like hyaluronic acid and how to use it for the cosmetic sector. So there are plenty of molecules and very interesting molecules in the ocean that we could use. And sometimes it's only found in the oceans, in the fisheries resources. So I think there are plenty of good resources that is sold for a very low price and could be processed differently and sold at a much higher price. So these are good examples and quite technical, but in a sense interesting. And the other one is about aquaponics. So, and I'm just stopping for now. Give you the floor.